Hello, welcome to the Alone Show. I'm your host, John Malone. In this episode, don't have regulars, because reasons, as always. As for our guest, he is from Southern California, currently in Huntington Beach, and he is a musician. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Jonathan Taylor.
Thank you.
Welcome. So, how's life?
Life is wonderful. Every day above ground is a good day.
Sweet.
There'll be plenty of time to sleep uh, later.
All right, very nice. And have you been up to much recently?
I'm always filming and doing recordings, uh, going on podcasts now, promoting my application. So that's what I'm doing. The application is on Google Play or Apple to download it. It's free, and it's just it has guitar lessons as well as, of course, performance videos and that. And what I'm doing all the time is basically going out on location.
Hmm.
So in
Nice,
a couple of
nice.
weeks, I'll be out in Palm Springs filming. Right now, I'm in Costa Mesa, which maybe you don't know that it's right next to Newport Beach in Orange County here. And so I go to different locations and that and film, and that's what I'm doing.
Nice, nice. So, what inspired you to become a musician?
Well, I can tell you the person that inspired me for playing the guitar, but for to be a musician, my grandmother was a silent film organist, and so she was always playing, her piano around the house when I'm a boy. And so I think that probably gets inculcated into you, imbued into you, and then you take a direction depending upon your time period, your culture, and what you're exposed to. But I think that my grandmother's a great virtuoso. Played all the silent film stars. We used to work a lot with Houdini. Up in the Pacific Northwest, which is where he is. He was always filling auditoriums up there. I mean, he'd be out on the uh, East Coast and jumping over Niagara Falls in a barrel and trying to get out from being chained. But so, what inspired me, though, in terms of playing, was Segovia.
Hmm, nice. So, what was life for you growing up?
I grew up in a very idyllic. Well, my parents separated when I was very young, so I was raised by my grandmother and my mother. And we, at the time, I was born in Santa Monica, and right next to that is a very well to do area called Pacific Palisades. Below that is Beverly Hills and Bel Air. And but then when my parents separated, I came out to Laguna and Garden Grove in Orange County. I don't know if those cities are familiar to you, Jamie.
Hmm, yeah, I can see that. So, what is your process in writing songs?
Well, I don't do much writing. I'm doing tremendous amount of arranging and adapting pieces to classical guitar from different genres. But I was a composition major on presidential scholarship at Chapman College here in Orange County, and at that time I was writing serious music, meaning orchestral music, string quartets, wind pieces, uh, orchestral uh, tone poems, and that. And the process is, boy, that's so I know I'm versed in all of the systems of composition, not just the major minor systems. So your question comes from the platform of a melody and chords, which is the major minor system or songwriting, pop songwriting. And so I've kind of done all that. I've written pop tunes, but I've also written serious compositions. But nothing really is new in that realm since probably the early teens of the 20th century with Stravinsky's ballets. At that point, the major minor system had broken down with Wagner, the chromaticism, and really Stravinsky, as Boulez said, the birth certificate of the 20th century is Le Sacre du Printemps, and with the Rite of Spring. So to ask you when I do compositions, I occasionally we use Babbitt squares in order to get the permutations of thematic material in that. And but I know all the systems. In other words, the dodecaphony, chordal systems, all the sonic systems that exist, um, even microtonal ideas. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it sure does. What kind of music do you often listen to?
I don't listen to music much because I'm either arranging or I'm learning. Like right now, I'm learning the Grand Jouet, which means the Grand Dance, by Tarrega, a very long virtuoso piece, and 15 pages. And so if I'm not preparing pieces for filming, recording, and that, or I'd be arranging, for example, my recent album it was released through Warner Brothers and Hit Lab label on the Warner Brothers system. Um, that was arrangements, some of them, some of the guitar masterpieces like uh, Leyenda and Sevilla, the Spanish masterpieces. But then I arranged the two orchestral scores for solo classical guitar from the two films from Wizard of Oz and from the Bond themes. So to right now, I'm not doing composition, but more arranging and adaptations.
Nice. Very good. And what was your biggest and most notable composition you've ever created?
I don't know about notable. One of my pop tunes is on the Guitar Chronicles album that was released in July. So that's a pop piece I did that uh, I won't say it's notable. I mean, but you know, the thing is, uh, when you write for orchestra, it's very easy in comparison to adapting or arranging or writing for the classical guitar. Now, that sounds strange to many people. I'm not talking about the electric guitar now. I'm talking about the classical guitar. And when you do that, the technical difficulties and are very different than standard orchestral instruments. So it's a when people who was it? I'm trying to remember. Maybe it was Boulez, not Boulez, who was saying the great violinist Jascha Heifetz used to say, the violin is the hardest instrument in the world to play, with the exception of the classical guitar. And the reason why that is the double stops, meaning the triads or dyads are constantly doing it. I used to train violinists when I was teaching at the Newport Institute of the Arts, and they would say, how can you do so many stops? People look at that as chord patterns and that, and I go, well, that's the nature of the instrument. And if it's going to be polyphonic, not just like a simple lead line and chords, I go, then that's the challenge of the instrument.
Okay, I can see that. Would you ever try space tourism?
Ever try what?
Space tourism.
Tourism?
Space tourism.
I don't understand what you're saying.
So, you heard of tourism?
Can you spell that? I don't know what word you're saying.
Tourism.
Touriss?
SM. Tourism.
Tourism.
Yes.
What about it? So what do you mean?
I'm asking, would you ever try space tourism?
Space tourism. Okay. I get it. Sure. I don't think they'd allow me though.
Oh, okay. That's unfortunate, but okay.
Yeah, well, you mean like what Richard Branson is doing and Bezos is doing a thing? Sure. They had got Bill Shatner up there, right? Bezos got
Yes.
Bill Shatner up there for just a, but they just go to low Earth orbit and it's only for like a New York minute, right? It's like they're up there 15 minutes or something. It's very easy to get to low Earth orbit and, of course, very hard to get to high. And then to break free, 17,500 to break the gravity of the Earth. But it's very simple, actually, to put a rocket up into low space altitude or to put those satellites up that are at low altitudes.
Mm, yes, absolutely.
And Musk, of course, revolutionized the rocket. So a lot of people don't know that. They see him those cars and that. And I go, well, he's really not that interested in the cars either. I go, he doesn't really, it's a moneymaker and all that. But I go, that's not his main thing is the space. But he totally took 80% of the cost of the rocket and got rid of it just by redesign. What are
Yeah.
the substances? What are the metals that it's made out of? He hated the space shuttle wings. He goes, you only use them for the last 15 minutes of the flight when you come home. And so it takes up like 35, 40% of the weight requirements. So that's where that gyroscopic re-landing of the rocket came from because he hated those wings, because
Yeah.
you don't need them. So would I go up in space? Hell yes, sure.
Nice. Very good.
And easy to go up there, easy to go up where they're going to, where people are going. Now, next year we'll start part phase 2 of the Artemis mission over there for the moon. And that's going to be very exciting because I know there are many minerals that are available that we can mine. You can actually mine the dust. A lot of people don't know that. They have the capacity to do that now. The moon does. There are minerals there that are useful. And the
Yes.
micro minerals here are really the ones in Africa that China, owns that they've got the lock on. I go, well, those are very necessary for your phones and computers.
Yes. It's quite interesting to say the least. What improved your life quality so much you wish you did it sooner?
Mm, Getting away from school training, which is stultifying to the mind. Now the schools, I mean, the professions are necessary. Law or medicine, engineering, but a lot of the other stuff now with the internet, there's absolutely 90% of all things you can learn. I'm sure there's a small amount of things, how do the nuclear detonators work on a bomb or something, but I mean, very small amount of things that you cannot learn yourself. But I realized that most what I had learned in school was either I won't say wrong, but not useful. It's not useful to either make money or to progress along a certain line. It's basically training you for a place for a job that you fit in certain slots. And I think that now it's so political in the schools that I go, well, I'm wondering what the point is. And that's not to say there aren't some things, physics. I mean, you go to Caltech or something, and or MIT. But what do I think? I was always, a classic American rebel, but I think the school system for the young people are pretty much a waste of time,
Mm, yes, of course.
generally.
Yes. What could you give a 40-minute presentation on without any preparation?
Any aspect of music, I could do that. I could do probably easily a presentation on different religions and different religious ideas, the Vedas or the Bhagavad Gita or many other of the religious texts without I could give a presentation on literature, studied literature for many, many years, whether it be the Russians or the, you know, here I'll recite one of your countrymen's um, songs of experience. Piping, and you have to guess who this is, and I'll bet you'll know you're an Englishman. Piping down the valley wild, piping songs of pleasant glee. On a cloud I saw a child, and he laughing said to me, pipe a song about a lamb. So I piped with merry cheer, Piper, pipe that song again. So I piped, he wept to hear. Piper, sit thee down and write in a book that all may read. So I vanished from his sight, and I plucked a hollow reed. I made a roll pen, and I stained the water clear, and I wrote my happy song. Every one may joy to hear. Now, who is that, Jamie? It's William Blake, and that's from Songs of Experience and Songs of Innocence.
Yes.
So there's and I could do the same thing with a Sufi poet, Omar Khayyam. Um, Come fill the cup, and in the fire of spring, the winter garment of repentance fling. The bird of time has but a little way to fly, and lo, the bird is on the wing. So that's from his Rubaiyat. And I did an orchestral piece decades ago based on parts of the poetry from the Rubaiyat, the Sufi masters.
Yes. Absolutely.
So I think there's a lot of subjects because I'm interested in many, many things. I have a lot of varied interests, whether it's, listening to a physics lecture or, recording out in the desert. So I think I'd have many things to do 40 minutes on.
Very nice. What is your favorite quote?
Oh boy. I have many favorite quotes. One by Benjamin Franklin is after we signed the Constitution, which is 11 years after the war for independence from England. Franklin said, well, gentlemen, now you have a republic if you can keep it. Because all democracies, there aren't any more. I mean, they all fall. They're like tombstones on the highway of history. Democracies, but republics, they can last longer, and they have a greater chance. So, but the democracies, strict democracy, meaning without representatives in that, and I go, well, and a lot of people don't know that's really why we have the electoral college here. Is democracies, they modeled it, of course, after English law and the Greeks and so forth. And I go, well, without the electoral, you just have New York and California decide the elections, and that wouldn't be very fair for everyone else. And that's why we have the electoral college. So that the majority, and not the majority, but people in large populous areas don't tyrannize the ones that are in less populous areas.
Yes, that's a very good reason, I suppose.
Yeah, well, most countries don't have a constitution, and they don't have, certainly don't have an electoral college, and we have one because the founding fathers were wise to see the true path of history, that ultimately another faction will get into power and try to take over and rule the other side.
Yeah, of course. If you could live anywhere in the world,
I'm
where
li-
would it be?
I'm living there right now. I live in Orange County, California, and I've toured everywhere. Jamie, I've toured in strange places, like India, like Romania, like the Philippines, like the Amazon, on and on and on. So I've been a lot of different places. Of course, I've been to England many times. I took my mom and at that time my girlfriend to uh, one of the last uh, trips of the Orient Express, and you get a Pullman at first to go across the channel, under the channel, I should say, in the tunnel, uh, and then pick up the Orient Express in where was it, Paris, I guess. So saying that, because I've been lots of places, and my home, though, is Southern California. It's where I was raised.
Yes,
I have so many
absolutely.
friends. I have friends all over the world, but you know, basically where you're raised, you have friends there.
You're right.
I'm sure in Manchester, if this is where you grew up, is this where you grew up?
Yeah, Manchester was the city where I grew up.
Right. And I mean, I'm sure you have a cache of friends that surround you and you've known for many, many years. I mean, that's common in everybody.
Yes, absolutely. Given a big city, it's still a small world.
Right. And I know people relocate and that I've never just because I've gone places. The only time I really saw the change of seasons in the world throughout one year, because we don't have seasons in California, trust me, not like the
Yeah.
rest of the world does. I go, the only time I did that when I was 10, I lived with my uncle in Missouri in St. Louis. So that was the first time I'd actually seen the seasons change. And to have 30-degree below zero temperature, that's Fahrenheit. And I go, I'd never experienced cold like that before.
Yeah, absolutely. If your mind was an island, what would it look like?
I hope that it isn't an island because I want to constantly reach out and to have connection with everything that I see because I don't want to be isolated. It's said, though, that Americans have island thinking because they don't need the rest of the world for supplies and that, even though, we import half the stuff from China and everywhere else. But it's been said that our mentality is like an island mentality because we don't need to band together. We might be NATO, we might be all those things, but I go, yeah, but is it necessary?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Have you been over here, Jamie?
To the US?
Yeah.
No, I've never been.
Well, so you'd be culture shock if you came to Southern California.
Oh, yes, I
Very,
sure will be.
yeah, very different than England. Very different.
Yeah, absolutely. If you could turn any activity into an Olympic sport, what would you have a good chance at winning a medal for?
Any activity
Yes,
into a sport,
yes, an Olympic sport to be
an
exact.
Olympic sport. Well,
Yes,
there were, of course, music competitions. You know, I remember
yeah,
one time I was playing in Barbados, and I was there were about, I don't know, 8 countries there for their crop over festival. I know that Barbados just left the empire here earlier this year, last year. Within a very short period here because uh, King Charles, and he was prince at the time, went over there to kind of like a separation from the empire. And when I was playing there, there were many. I played there many times, and Frank Collymore Hall and there's something called the Crop Over Festival there that they celebrate every year, and there were a lot of. The first time I went, there was a festival where there were many different guitars, and I kind of won the day. And the leading guitarists from their nations, like France or Martinique or wherever it is, and so I guess there are those competitions, but truthfully, uh, I don't really watch sports. And number two, uh, I never felt competitive in my playing. I just want to be the best me, and I just don't believe it for me. For other people, that's fine. But for me, I just want to refine what I am and not compete with anybody else. And then that standard would raise myself.
Yeah. What movie would be greatly improved if it was made into a musical?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I don't think they hardly write musicals anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, the old ones, Oklahoma and all those, but I mean, they hardly write musicals that I know of.
Yeah.
Is Andrew Lloyd Webber still writing? I don't even know.
I didn't know that was a thing to begin with.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a shock. Have you ever thought of living in a garden, or at least a world where there is nothing but gardens?
No. And an English garden is probably what inspired Darwin on his voyage HMS Beagle to the Galapagos. Because whenever I hear that, I think about the garden and about what I call the classic English garden. I think about uh, Darwin as a little boy. He'd see the finches, and probably your listenership knows this, but I go, well, he got to the Galapagos then, years later, and he noticed that the finches had tremendously long beaks, way different. They were very much like the ones he would see in his garden as a boy in England. But then he noticed their snouts, their bills had grown so much, and they survived or inherited the characteristics because they had just enough length at first to dig in the ground for worms, as the seed supply at one time had kind of dried up for certain species. At least that was his conjecture. And that's one of the reasons he evolved his theory that things adapt, and if they don't survive. And it's not intelligence or strength either. That's something a lot of people mistake about those theories. Is that I go, well, it's not intelligence or strength because that may not be what you need to adapt to. Doesn't matter how strong you are as a human being, if a leopard is coming at you, the leopard will eat you. You better have a tool. You better have a tool to defend yourself. Uh, so when I think about it, and England and an English garden, that's what I think about.
All right, that's cool. What? And I know you live in California, and I still want to know if you were to, if it was possible, what would be your favorite season?
I don't think I'm qualified to answer that since I've only experienced them once. I'm not sure I can give you a legitimate answer. Personally, I like autumn because that's it changes the wind. It is colder. Like right now, we're still in autumn because winter's coming up, and I guess to you this is more winter, but it's not officially winter yet. Uh, I'm sure maybe it's cold there in Manchester where you are, but I mean, I still it's November and I wear shorts and
Ah,
have on sandals or flip flops.
right, okay.
Yeah, so I don't even think about. Uh, I can all year long wear shorts and sandals.
Yeah, fair enough. I could relate, kind of. And that is all we have for this episode. It's great having you on, John, talking about your work as a musician, your composition works, and everything else. It's been great.
Thank you. And if people want to download my app, they can just go to Google Play or go to the Apple Store. It's free. Just type Jonathan Taylor in. There's tons of free material in there.
Fabulous.
Great meeting you, Jamie.
You too.
All right.
And until next time, stay tuned for more.